Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today we're going to kind of wrap the year. It's the end of 2023, and I'm going to go over a little bit of the top 5 subjects of the year and the top 5 references of the year based on activity and what people messaged me about and asked further questions about this year. So we're going to dive into that right away. And I'm going to give you the five top topics of study and the 5 best references that we've discussed for the year. So the biggest things that stand out for the year to me are the difference videos, where we went into subject matter and said, well, what's this versus that, and what should you be focusing on? So the first was the want to win versus refusing to lose. Okay, so in a lot of situations, in a lot of subject matter that we've gone over in the channel, there's always going to be limitations, there's always going to be barriers. And no matter where you're at or where you're working, there's going to be folks that get in your way, and there's going to be folks that help you get through what you're trying to get through, remove those challenges, and get to a better goal for your company, your solutions to your providers or your customers, and then in support and growth for your team. So in that want to win or refuse to lose is suggesting no matter where you are, that you start where you're at, you do all you can and have the greatest impact you can, no matter what limitations or what boundaries are put on you. So it's not about, so we talk about leadership, it's not about roles that you're in, it's about how you act where you're planted, right? How you work out of the situation you're in. So we want to know, one, is the difference between wanting to win and refusing to lose. Two is the willpower versus the why power. So a lot of times people talk about having the willpower to continue and to be dogged about what they're trying to do to complete their goals and achieve their goals, right? Willpower in itself is not strong enough. You have to have the why power. You have to know why people are motivated. This is going to help you motivate your team. But you're also going to need to know why you're motivated. Why are you getting up every day going after what you're going after and doing what you're trying to do? Is there something in that that supports a greater good that's motivating you? Because on days that it's tough to get going, on days where there just seems to be too much stacked up against you, that why power is what's going to be motivating you once willpower has faded. So that's the second call out for the year, is willpower versus why power. The third is wants versus goals. We talk about wants and goals often in videos on this channel. One, wants is hopes and dreams, right? Through plans and schemes, you achieve hopes and dreams. That's what wants are. Goals, on the other hand, are planned, step-by-step approaches that have a deadline, all right? And in that period of process of going after your goals, you're directing, you're addressing, you're inspecting the results that you get, then redirecting and readdressing. And it is this constant pattern of trying, then correcting, then addressing the wins or the knowledge that's gleaned from that, the learning from the losses, then redirecting and going again. Goals are a never-ending process that are dated and time-stamped, okay? So the difference between goals and wants are a deadline or a date, right? And once again, if you want something but you don't have a dedicated timeline with that in mind, then you're talking about hopes and dreams, you're not talking about goals. So that's number 3 for the year. Number 4 is the difference between stress and motivation, okay? So a lot of times the difference between stress and motivation is simply your viewpoint, all right? Rob Dyrdek did a interview recently on a channel on LinkedIn, and what he was talking about was how going broke after he made $1 million, how people can look at that as different factors. One, it can be a stress factor that shuts someone down and gets them just to fall out and give up on what they want in life and their hopes and dreams. And the other is motivation. It's a motivational factor. You know you've got the keys to success. You just have to put them in order again to get back to where you once were. The other piece around that too in his interview is you want to make sure that when you're going through situations that you're putting a little bit away, right? Pay off things. Don't live on debt. Live on assets, right? Pay off things. So if there is a rainy day, or if there is a time where the earnings dry up, or if there is a time where you're limited in what you can earn because you were injured or had a disability or something else, then you want to have something you can fall back on. You want to have some sort of protection. So that's the difference between stress and motivation. And it goes back to that number one, wanting to win versus refusing to lose. It's two very different things that come from the same mindset, just like the stress and motivation is. The idea is when you're stressed out, you blame things on other people or the situation. When you're motivated, you know that you own that. Your choices are what put you in a situation. So now what you have to do, even though other things may have stacked up on top of that and compounded it, make it far, far worse, that's fine. That's life. That's how it happens, right? So if that's the case, you need to take that, you need to own it, and you need to step by step, piece by piece, break that down and move out of it. And then the last subject of the year of the top 5 would be the difference between a manager and a leader. We talk often about leadership on this channel. It's one of my favorite subjects to study, and it's what I do professionally. Companies hire me several times over their history to come in and redirect their teams and correct their teams and make sure they have leaders in place that are doing the right things. A lot of the stuff we're talking about are the stuff that's getting missed. So when I do that, or when I work for a corporation and have a team of leaders, I want to make sure that these folks understand the difference between managers and leaders. Leaders are there to grow and develop and make other leaders out of their people. Managers are there to manage things like process rather, and manage things like assets and money. You don't manage people, you lead people. Folks that manage people basically manage to run people off, right? So you have to lead people. You manage their processes, you manage assets, and you manage money, but you lead people. And what that means is you should be people focused. You should be growth focused. You should be continuation focused when it comes to your teams, okay? So the last subject of the year, which is probably our primary subject on this channel, is the difference between management and leadership. Now what I'm going to talk about very quickly is the probably the best 5 references we've suggested over the year, taking the Bible out of that because we know that most people should look at that. I think everybody should participate with the Bible daily, but these are more around business and leadership thought context, right? So one was fairly recent, Do You Have Time for Success by Julio Malera. This book had a lot of comments on the channel about this, and a lot of comments on the context, a lot of comments on the video, and folks reaching out on the subject matter here. That is a very great book, and you can see that it's a very thin book. So I would say pick yourself up a copy. Sooner or later, I'll have the Amazon added to this, so you can try to pick up some copies through the actual channel itself, and we'll have that linked in the description of the videos. But I'm working on that now. But Do You Have Time for Success is a great book. We had several topics. There's a video in here about that. Check it out. Any entrepreneur, any leader, or anybody that's just trying to be successful in their own life, in their own work efforts, should read that book and glean some opportunity from that. The next is the E-Myth Revisited. I like this better than the initial E-Myth book. This is by Michael E. Gerber. This talks to entrepreneurialism and why folks should not open businesses just because they enjoy a topic or a subject matter. It goes back to that willpower versus that why power. If you're just doing something because you think you enjoy a subject, or you think you enjoy the subject matter, this may not be the way to go, simply because you don't have the power to sustain the business. Yes, you may have the motivation, the excitement in the beginning to open the business, but it's kind of like a dog versus a goldfish, right? A goldfish is for people who want a pet for a brief period of time. A dog is a 15 to 20-year commitment, right? A business should be seen the same way. Unless you're in the business of building businesses and selling them, or building franchises and selling them, then the thought process should be, if you're going to open an entrepreneurial type business, you're going to do that till you retire. So you need to make sure that you have the willpower and the why power to support a business like that and keep it going. And then the revenue, and know how to create funds should you need that. Number 3 should actually be, these last 3 are in numerical order. This was probably one of the most spoken about books of the year, The Psychology of Money. If you haven't seen that video, you need to go watch it. It's a great video on the channel. It's probably one of our longer videos of the year. And I'll read this one excerpt from the book. Wealth, basically the definition of wealth varies from person to person. This is my definition of wealth. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, is priceless. This is the highest dividend money pays. That's on page 83 of the book. This is by Morgan Housel, The Psychology of Money, one of my favorite books of the year. I reread this every year. As I do the rest of these on this list, this is really exceptional. But check that book out. It's worth it. If you can't get a copy of the book, watch the video on that book on the channel. The book is on the thumbnail, so you can see that. It's fantastic as a reference. It gives you a lot of clarity around maybe some perceived misconceptions of what people think is important versus what actually is, and then kind of goes into the concept of the numbers around money and why some people think the way they do versus others. Number 2 for the year is going to be Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. This is by Chris Voss. Let me tell you, that is probably the best book on negotiating that I've read. I've got several here on the shelf right behind me, but this is actually one of my favorites. I reread this every year. I've actually connected with Mr. Voss on LinkedIn because his book's that impressive, and I like to know when he's going to be speaking in areas and teaching different classes in different areas because his insight is just that valuable. He was an agent and used to negotiate people's lives, so that's why it's definitely different than what you may come across. And the rules taught there. So basically, a lot of the thought process around negotiating is when you have a negotiation, you have two parties that are going to lose. In that situation, it goes to say that one party can't because their life depends on it. And it goes through those practices that were best seen from there. And number 1 of the year, the number one reference that I would recommend for the year is First Things First by Stephen R. Covey. This is a book we did a video on recently. This is very highly ranked in my mind because I have 2 separate clients right now. They're going through specific things because they're doing things based on urgency. They're not doing first things first. They're not waking up in the morning saying, what can we do to hammer our processes down and do this as appropriately as we can, knowing that that will take all the noise out of the business. So they're still racing around and doing things that's making other things more difficult on them. So I'll say this to everybody out there. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to create process in your business, okay? That's to support that why power that we talked about earlier, but it also supports your willpower from day to day. It gives you energy and time to recycle because you see that you're meeting goals, right? You see that you're meeting deadlines. You have all these things that are positive affirmations of what the business is doing properly. Folks that don't focus on first things first and always responding with the absolute urgency on everything that pops up, the issue with that is you run yourself ragged and you get to the point where you don't recover and you don't fill your cup. A lot of companies talk about filling your cup. What that means is recharging to the point so you can put your best work forward to take care of your teams, to take care of your customers, to take care of your shareholders. And it's very simple. If you aren't able to recover, then you can't give your best work. So if you're not giving your best work, that means the quality of the product that you're providing is diminished, the quality of the leadership that you're providing is diminished, and the quality of the relationship that you're building with your customers, your team, and your shareholders is diminished. So at the end of the day, the best thing you can do is focus on processes. And if you can put processes in place and you monitor them and improve them year over year, and you're on a fixed pattern of continuous improvement around those processes, the business will continue to get better and better. And in those process improvements, you're mitigating waste, you're taking that out. So not only is the business getting better and healthier, you're doing things in a way that it can be sustained more easily in the future. So it's kind of that fit to fight we talk about sometimes on the channel. When you're in leadership, sometimes you have to be fit to fight. Sometimes you have to get in front of your team and protect them from people up above that don't act like they know what we do down in the trenches. And then sometimes it's out about competition. But I never say focus on competition or the bad things on this channel because ultimately if you focus on yourself and your own quality of work, you're going to rise above those folks. And they'll have somebody like you at some point that's going to rise up too. So that's why you continue to focus on improving your business, because if you're beating your competition on a certain level and you're constantly working on improving your business, your costs are reducing, your quality of product and service is improving. So over time, you'll make more money on doing less. And when you make more money on doing less, then you don't have to meet the same, high marks that you used to in sales or in process or in products or whatever that may be, because less is going to equal more. And so when you go down to that, talking about the future and having a place for you in the world, you will have sustained that by having these processes. This is the point I want to make overall. On the channel, we're here to share references such as these, true case studies that I've gone through or know or have worked in or find interesting. And the idea is to help you in the same way they help me, to help us from making mistakes that other people have already made, to show the patterns that certain things provide over time if you do them and sustain them, and to show the patterns and what happens if you don't. So that's the idea of the channel. That's been the 5 best for the year, the 5 best subjects we went over, and the 5 best references we've offered that had the best impact on our viewers for the year. Please subscribe. Please like this video if you enjoyed this content. We'll have much more coming in the new year. And this is something that I plan to do for the long term. So as we continue through the channel, if you have suggestions about videos or content you'd like to see, or books that you'd like to see reviewed, or references that you'd like to see reviewed, send that to me. I find some of these books, and I'll tell you, The Psychology of Money, this was actually recommended to me by a viewer of the channel. And when I read this book, it's one of my favorite books now. So you guys teach me things just like I hope to share things with you here that may be of value. And let's look to do that much more in the new year. I'm Ben. I appreciate you. I appreciate your viewership. I appreciate your likes, and I appreciate your subscriptions. If you know other people who like this content, please share the channel with them and ask them to subscribe as well. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Merry Christmas. If you're out where I am, be safe, and we will see you in the new year. Be good.